Move over, sun, and give me some sky. I've got some wings I'm eager to try. I may be unknown, but wait till I've flown. You're gonna hear from me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Marketer Perspective. We're here again for another session of Meet the Masters. I was fortunate in that I've had an occasion to visit with these particular SEC members and see how they work in a marketing environment. So I've asked them to come tonight and discuss the different platform that they live and work within. It's a different platform than perhaps what you are accustomed to thinking of as real estate practice. So to talk about those differences, I'd like them to introduce themselves. Let's start with you.
Well, thank you, Maggie. I'm Strand with the Capital Companies from Newport Beach, California. And I've been involved in this business since 1968.
And you're a member of?
I'm a member of the Society of Exchange Counselors, yes.
Okay. And next up?
I'm Jonilonis with the company of the same name. I've been at it since 1960, buying and selling, helping people. And I come out of San Diego, California, and that area, and I cover the world.
Now, I happen to know that's true. I've seen you present property that is well outside of the U.S.
People have problems in other areas, man.
And
I'm Chet from Encinitas, California, which is San Diego County. And I've been doing this since about 1962 and do deals all over the world. My company's Greyhawk Incorporated, and we've got a couple of other ones we've started recently, too. So we're doing a lot of the exchange type of concepts throughout the country.
I noticed that today, each one of you presented more than one package in which you were involved as principals. So I can assume that you may or probably are amongst your best clients.
Well, each one of us practice differently and started out perhaps with clients. And each one of us has taken a different path and has different specialties. And I choose to be more of a principal in the transactions with various entities that I'm involved with. And sometimes I will bring a client in to co-op a deal with me, and we'll work together, clients that I've worked with through the years.
So you still keep the clients that you work with?
Very few, yes.
How many clients would you say that you work with now?
3.
Oh, that is very few.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you kept the cream of the crop. What happened to the rest of
Well, many of them became partners in the entities in which I am representing. So they may be involved in an LLC or a corporation for specific purposes, and that entity is my client.
You know, in the traditional real estate field, partnering with a client may represent a conflict of interest or a particular liability exposure.
Well,
say that.
But you have to be with the right client, and clients develop into partners, and you have to have somebody that you completely understand who they are, and they understand who you are and what the common goal is. And if that doesn't happen, you don't do it.
So you've got a real trust going
with
these particular
absolutely.
Exactly.
What would you call your specialty?
Finance, and I've been known to structure very difficult transactions, and I've been involved in the securities world, in the real estate world, and use those tools to assist me in solving real estate problems and construct transactions.
Now, you know I'm going to come back to those transactions in a
few
minutes, but I want to find out some more about George.
I'm going to start back very young. I was very impressed with my granddad, who came from Hungary, and my mom was born there. He came over, brought his family over, had a total of 5 kids, worked very hard with not a very good education, but managed to buy a piece of real estate that grew into a free and clear triplex back in Chicago. And that triplex satisfied the needs of my grandmother after he passed away, and took her for the rest of her life. It just covered all her needs and all her expenses for the rest of life. I thought that if a fella like that can succeed in real estate, and I think he did, I was very impressed by his ability, that I ought to be able to do the same thing with the background and education. And so I started practicing what I preached, what I learned from him, and then pretty soon I found that even though I started out in aerospace, I liked real estate, and I started buying, and soon I started helping my friends in the aerospace industry, and pretty soon I said, I'm doing as well in real estate as I was with a salaried position in aerospace. Why don't I get in here and do this the way I see it should be done, not necessarily the way it's being done out there? Mm-hmm. Got involved with a course from Mr. Reno, got involved with the SECs, and it's a great group. It's a fraternity, basically. We work, play, we have meetings all over the place, and we do some really fine work. We solve problems that others can't even begin to perceive solving. We're into all kinds of marketing, times, conditions. We've all been through 3, 4, 5 of these. This one's probably the most interesting, but it's not going to hold us back. And I typically do my best work and help my clients best in a market like this because there are so few alternatives with normal banks and financing. And so it works for me, it works for my clients.
I've got to ask you, would you classify these as interesting times?
Fascinating. In the January meeting of the Society of Exchange Counselors, I walked in and Tom Langle, our president, came up and said, Chet, this is our Super Bowl.
It's true.
This is what we've been training for. I mean, all of us that around have been in this business 30, 40 years, and most of us have been through 3 or 4 recessions, both as agents and principals, and each one is different. I mean, we can recall the days of 18 and 20% interest rates, and we can recall the times when lumber prices went through the roof and we're trying to figure out how to make payroll in the building business. But right now, I mean, there's so many unknowns. It's just like a whole different kind of chess game where you start making the moves, but somebody changes the rules on you in the middle of the game. So this is
start playing checkers and end up with chess.
Yeah,
and who knows, you may land on back end.
And we don't know what the rules are going to be tomorrow.
Have you gone through this kind of a cycle with banks and lenders and currency flow?
Never. And this is a whole different world because not only are the banks probably would like to stay with the same kind of rules that they've traditionally done, but their hands are tied too. I mean, we can get mad at the banks for not making loans when we really need them, but on the other hand, you can look at their financial statements and see they can't do it. And when the regulators come in and say, you can't do this kind of a thing, you can't make any more construction loans, or you have too many of your assets in commercial real estate, they cannot help us when we need help. So that's when we have to get creative.
And I take it there's no lack of that ability in your group.
We don't think so. We had a symposium in Dallas was it in July, I think it was?
Yes, it was July.
And 50 of our members, of our 100 members, came from all over the country, and we sat down for a day in Dallas, and each of us had a little segment of the symposium to throw out the problems and try to brainstorm them and figure out some solutions.
So
and it
you
was
actually go
fascinating.
to an open forum, and everybody's brain power gets applied to a situation.
Our whole thing is about cooperation and helping each other, and what's good for George is good for me, and what's good for Cliff is good for all of us. And if he can figure out a better way to do a deal, all of us know a better way to do a deal. There's nothing hidden about what we're doing.
Is that how this book of formulas got compiled?
The book of formulas got compiled because if there's 100 different ways to do a deal, one of which is with cash, the other 99 got formulated because there was no solution that was on the table. Nobody knew what the next step was when they got stuck. So they invented something.
And so these aren't theoretical
No, traditional real estate focuses on the sale. And we focus
cash.
with cash. And what people fail to recognize is cash is nothing more than a system of barter. It's somebody earned it and they're spending it and they negotiate. And you can do the same thing with real estate itself, without having to. That's existed through the years. It's always been there in good times and bad, and so there are always structured transactions that don't necessarily require any cash. Sure, cash is better.
What now? Why is cash better?
Because it's easier for people to understand, to spend, to buy things, but it's not the only way.
So the cash can be spent without ingenuity, brain power, creativity,
Yes,
or reaching outside the box. In other words, you need skills to work without the cash.
that's correct.
And knowledge and experience doesn't hurt either.
That's correct.
I didn't ask you, what would you consider your specialty to be?
Well, I'm a builder, developer, and exchanger. Those are when things are really good and there's a lot of cash out there. I'm a builder and developer. When there's no development possibilities out there, I'm an exchanger, the problem solver. That's my scenario.
You still work with clients?
No, I don't think I've had a client in years except for my own corporations.
Mm-hmm. And you are actually partnered with several other
Yes,
members of your group.
And-
Is it common for you to partner together on projects?
absolutely. And that's one of our strengths is that
The trust
Yeah,
involved in this fraternity. He tells me something, I don't have to check it. I know he's telling me the truth. And that's the way it is. So we share and we move on and we do things.
One thing that really impressed me is the willingness of each and every one of you when I said, will you take your time after a marketing meeting, and I know you're all tired, to come and sit and talk about what you do. And every one of you was not only not reluctant, you were actually eager to share. Why would you share everything that you know and do with the public?
This is almost evangelistic, because I believe so much that there are a lot of good people out there in the business that don't understand how to make it happen in this market. And if I can find somebody that can take a tip and help him or her go forward and close a transaction that they might not understand otherwise, or with my partners, buddies, SEC members, I'm anxious to do it because I know in the long run, any good I do is going to come back. And it may come back as a favor, it may come back from a call from somebody, a referral, and that's just the way we all are. It's kind of the policy, maybe unwritten, of the group.
It's time to get younger people, new people. You look around and gray hair, and it's time to get a new generation involved. And we've been through a cash cycle where that new generation was making a lot of money, and now they aren't. So it's now time for them to learn how it's really done. Mm-hmm. And so we're here to stimulate that and educate people, as I know you are, and that's what we're trying to do.
It's funny that you should say that, because when I got a real estate license, I was very young,
Mm-hmm.
but I was already a real estate investor. And I got a license so that I could have the first crack at the inventory. Surely all the people with the licenses were getting all the best deals. Well, I was very stunned to learn after the fact that about 2% of the real estate practitioners are actually real estate investors. That always has amazed me.
Yes.
Because it's out there.
Stunning thing. That everybody that I see in the organization is actually actively investing. And not only that, you're primarily investing with yourself, your clients, your corporations, your entities, your holdings, each other. You are fully absorbed into the practice of what you do and living that life. It's a do as I do model. When I went to my first MLS meeting, it was quite a shock, because I sat through a meeting where they were talking about high ceilings, low floors, pink bathroom, yellow kitchen. And so after it was over, I went up to the front of the room and I talked to the gal who seemed to be in charge. And I said, where are the real estate deals done? She said, what do you mean real estate deals? I said, where do people really do deals? She said, this is it. And I said, oh, I didn't sign on for this. This is not, no. She said, well, maybe what you want to do is meet with those old farts. And that's exactly what she called the men who met twice a month in the back building on the lot with the MLS office, the old farts. So, of course, on the appointed day at the appointed hour, I showed up for the meeting of the old farts. And they were all gray-haired. And, of course, what I had, by blessed occurrence, wandered into was a meeting of the real estate masters. These were the fellows who started by trading Aggies over the back fence. Mm-hmm. And now we're trading tracts of land and just deals that were one-of-a-kind, mind-boggling works of art. And I fell in love with the practice. Where did you fall in love with it?
I fell in love. I'm third-generation real estate, and so I grew up with it. And right out of college, I really wasn't going to go into real estate. I had some patents and some things like that in electronics, but I got hooked, and I got my license, and I went to Richard Reno's seminar. You've heard of Richard Reno, and I learned from Richard Reno. First thing I learned was, and this still sticks with me today, is there's no such thing as bad real estate, just untimely ownership, or wrong ownership. But it's not just people. That relates to institutions, corporations. They don't belong owning something. They belong owning something else. They're in the wrong piece of real estate or the wrong venture. Okay,
it's like when the music stops, you're sitting in the wrong chair.
Yeah, exactly. Now, an example today about the young people, and I invited a younger real estate agent from South Lake Tahoe to the meeting that we had today. He went through the courses earlier in the week. Mm-hmm. And he's been trying to market a small mobile home park in South Lake Tahoe forever. Mm-hmm. And it's not selling, it's got vacancies. And so I said, come to this meeting. Come. And he finally did. And today he moved it. I mean, at the meeting, there was a structured transaction. Mm-hmm. He presented the property. He received offers. And some of the old people helped him structure the transaction. He made a deal in one day.
Will somebody be available to him to help him get that written and closed?
They were today, and he'll be back tomorrow, and I'm sure he'll be asking more questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But he's not left to sink or swim.
No, absolutely not.
Well, I told you a little bit about how I got started. But one of the things I really want to cover is we have a meeting in the San Diego area that's like 50 years old. It's been going on that long, and I've been attending for a long time.
This is your local.
Our local transaction. The difference now, and Cliff mentioned it, is that a lot of the people attending this meeting have been cash-oriented for the last 10 years, and they don't understand. So they'll get up and make a presentation, and I'm not demeaning them by any means, because this is the way they are typically trained in residential real estate. But they come to the meeting, we ask them a question like, well, what is the equity? Mm-hmm. They don't know. They haven't asked. They haven't consulted. Mm-hmm. Okay, number two, what will they take? Well, they want all cash. Well, why do they want it? We don't know.
I'm sure that gets you that deer in the headlights look that says, well...
Then kindly we take them aside or suggest they go to a meeting or come to one of the NC meetings or someplace, one of your seminars, someplace where we can help them learn. You have an inheritance situation. A property is somebody passes away and you've got 3 or 4 kids and they all want cash. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they need each to be consulted. And one might need this much, one might need that much, one might not need it at all. And so maybe what you do is you take a single trust deed back when you sell the property, you split it into 4 sections, 4 different notes with maybe different interests, different time frames, so they close at different times or pay off at different times, maybe even different interest rates. Mm-hmm. And then for those who want cash, you show them how you can sell the payments for a year or 2 or 3 and get the cash they need right now, still make the transaction, and everybody goes away happy with what they need. And you sell the property because you've done it with notes. Yeah.
Is looking at going to college in 8 years, he probably would be just as happy to have the interest accrue on that note and then just be due or start.
Sure, when you need it, it'll be there. But people don't understand that you can always borrow against the trust deed that you take back. There's somebody out there that will give you maybe a discounted rate for selling 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years worth of payments. Mm-hmm. And then they get the note back. So they ultimately, and
they end up with the principal back.
They end up with the principal, and as far as I know, it's not taxable until you take the note and actually pay it off.
And this is just one formula for helping solve a problem.
It's just but that's one of the common ones today, because the new people in the business, they don't know, and they don't understand that cash is available in a transaction by doing something creative. Okay?
Okay, now, you guys, every one of you, has mentioned that you went to the Richard Reno course. How long was that course?
5 days, I think.
5 days.
5 days, and probably, what was it, about 1978 or 9 is probably the last time he taught it, I think.
And I lost 4 nights' sleep
while
I was going.
Sure.
But holy smokes.
The graduates of that course, I mean, of course, the society was born out of that, but also the local exchange network across the country was developed. In Southern California, there were 22 meetings that met every month, and it was a circuit, and they would draw 100 people to each one of those meetings.
If you want a little interesting history about those days, because Reno started a whole new philosophy and organized real estate, and the CCIM group, the numbers people, and I hold that designation too, but they had a different attitude about creative exchanging, and there was almost a fist fight at one of the national meetings because of Reno's concepts of benefit-driven real estate, and we're working with the people, not the property, and so that concept was very revolutionary in the 60s, and it was kind of a
almost everything was revolutionary in the 60s, I think. But he was a rebel within the industry even at that time.
Yeah, he was pretty much ostracized from a lot of the...
Yes.
He was actually a president of the San Diego board, as was I at a later date. But he kind of moved away from that and got into this concept, and was one heck of a teacher.
Well, nothing succeeds like success, and it sounds to me like he planted a concept and a vision that was so strong that all of you went out like apostles and reseeded the concept in your local environment.
Still are.
And we're all different. I mean, we see things differently. I mean, some of the things that Reno did, I'm sure we don't follow, just along like a lemming or something. But I think we all subscribe to the fact of people business, and it's all about cooperation.
It's benefit driven. Real estate is basically a tool for people to get from here to there, and what they want from it is the benefits, not the real estate itself.
Bottom line.
And that's what he taught. And benefits does not necessarily mean a dollar sign. So when you balance in a transaction, it's not balancing with dollars, it's balancing with benefits.
You know what I think the wonderful key to that might be? The rules and regulations can change momentarily, as you just mentioned. And the environment, the economics, and the way things are constructed, and where they're being built, and where the growth is, all of that can evolve around a practitioner in this industry. But it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're talking about fundamental human needs and goals and dreams, those drivers don't change.
That's correct.
So there's a stability in the practice that you do that you would never find in a retail marketplace, which is strictly attached to price, cash, inventory, and getting as many listings as you can.
How many times have I heard in somebody in the traditional real estate market say, I have this property, I don't want to sell it, and then you start asking, well, who owns it? What's the nature of the ownership? What are their goals? How much is owned on it? They say, what difference does that make?
They don't even show.
They don't even show.
Okay,
The very basics.
Question.
Yeah.
What difference does that make?
It makes all the difference.
Yeah. I mean, this is about the people, and the the property is secondary. It's just a vehicle. And we're dealing in equities. I mean, if you have $1 million parcel of property and a $950,000 loan on it, and you don't know that, it's a whole different set of circumstances than somebody who owns it free and clear.
But the answer from traditional real estate is going to be, but if you knew that my client owed $950 on a $1,000 piece of real estate, or $950,000 on $1 million piece, well then you would lowball my offer.
I heard that, and a good example of how things work. There was a meeting in Newport Beach where there was a new broker there, and he had an office building listed, and he was trying to present it. And he just, all he wanted, the building was owned by an attorney, all he wanted was cash. And then finally we said, what would he do with the cash if he had the cash? Well, he'd buy a house on the water in Newport Beach. And then he said, well, I suppose he would trade for a house on the water in Newport Beach, that would never happen, basically. So the party that was conducting the meeting said, what we're going to do is we're going to take a chalkboard up here, and I want all the crazy offers you can think of to come for this office building. And you're going to take them all to your client, or we're going to throw you out of the room, basically, and you're going to present them to your client.
Well,
and
that's
he didn't
a
have
tough initiation.
And so he did do that. And I wrote an offer that was so bizarre. It was 27 condominiums in Dickinson, North Dakota, for an office building in Newport Beach.
Okay.
I mean, that's a long ways from cash, and that's a long ways from being on the water.
That's a lot of management.
And he didn't want, the broker didn't want to take the offer, but we insisted they took it. Guess what? He hadn't counseled the client. The attorney was in the military. He had fond memories of that town because that's where he was in the military. And it turns out that he had a family partnership in the LLC that he wanted to break up. And this gave him the ability to divide and break up. He made
2 for you, 3 for you, 4 for you.
Made the transaction, right. The individual that was running that meeting not conducted the meeting properly with a new person and educated him as to the reasons why that transaction never would have gone together.
How often do people come to a marketing meeting like that, get that kind of initiation, and throw up their hands and never come back?
Well, it used to be that we had what we call black hatting 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and it was one of the worst things that we could have done for new people coming into the industry. And we really cleaned up our act, frankly, and we're much more helpful now to the novice coming into the rookie.
Well, you've got to tell us, what's the black hatting thing?
Well, black hatting is somebody that gets up and, just like Cliff said, that didn't know what the loan was and didn't know what this was and didn't know what the client would do, and some of the people that were more critical would practically boo them off the podium, and somebody that was nervous getting up there anyway to tell about their client, they never wanted to come back. And so consequently, we kind of mentor people now like we never did
went
before.
Through a teenage arrogant period.
Yeah.
That was before the gray hair. Right?
Is that the truth?
That's right. Because we experienced it ourselves.
Yeah.
So you did say it was like a fraternity.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the initiation, huh?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully not, because nobody'd want to join the fraternity if everybody was that way.
Well, speaking of that, how does one join the fraternity? This is an elite, limited group. And not all of you are going to be playing in this arena forever.
By invitation.
Well, how do you encounter these people?
And more than just invitation, a lot of the people come as guests to our meetings for 10, 15, 20 times. Mm-hmm. And when the group thinks that somebody is qualified to become a candidate member, then they serve a candidacy period. And ultimately, if everybody feels that they could be a good counselor member, then they are voted in.
It's like accepting somebody into the family. It's like a courtship period, and you get to know them.
Got to date a while.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What are the qualifications that you look for?
Well, integrity is number one. There's no question about that.
I agree.
And the second thing is that we hold a family meeting every year, and this isn't part of the requirements, but let's see, How many of you, everybody's kids have been to the families meeting? In fact, we've got a whole generation of young potential members now that grew up coming to the family meetings.
It's a special one in the summer, and the members are the only ones that get to come. We don't have guests.
We have some sons and daughters of members that are members.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I've talked to a couple of the masters.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, you know, my kids don't want anything to do with real estate. And it shocked me because it occurs to me that frequently the children who are blessed to have people who are such marvels in their industry. These are the people who have the answers to the questions that everybody has. It always stuns me that the kids don't know what a gift they have under their own roof, to the extent that they don't even want to be in the same industry.
Isn't that typical of any child with what their parents do?
It is amazing.
Let me tell you a story. His son is working with him as close as anything, and we're working. When we start to make a deal with Cliff, we go through his son Mike, and they end up working together.
Right.
I tried to get my son involved, and he said, "Dad," he said, "I can remember when you closed that big deal, and you bought Mother a brand new Mercedes 450 SL, and you bought that new Cadillac convertible. And I can remember a year later when you couldn't afford to put tires on that car." He said, "I don't think I want to be in that business." So that was a very interesting dynamics of my family.
How is it that part of the message of possibilities gets lost in translation when it goes home? Because exactly with the example you gave, most wage earners, the breadwinners of the family, will never see the possibility of putting the Mercedes in the driveway. Mm-hmm. They live the reality of the saving up to buy the tires for the car. How is it the upside is missed somehow?
I don't know if that's generic or...
Everybody wants security, and so everybody has a different motive. Not everybody's entrepreneurial. So I guess it's that entrepreneurial aspect that and the fun part of it. First of all, they have to understand, I don't think any of us are in it to make a living. We're in it because we like doing it, and it's fun. You
fell in love with your career.
Sure.
When I think back, I've been selling all my life. I delivered newspapers. I delivered newspapers and won contests for new subscriptions, and I've always had something going. And I learned that if I wanted something, I didn't go home and ask for it because there wasn't anything there on the table for me. If I wanted it, I needed to go out and work. So I've got a work ethic, and it's still there, and I love what I do. And if you think about it, very few people in the world can really actually say that. I can, and these guys can, because none of us have to do this. I mean, we could have all stopped a long time ago. But it's interesting working with new people and new ideas and solving new problems, maybe some that haven't been around for a while or have never been around.
We encountered one at our shop.
Yeah.
I had an agent discover shortly before close of escrow on a 27 parcel transaction with various improvements on them that they'd all been deeded to Jesus Christ, care of God, and literally.
Okay.
Which means title had an issue.
Yes, I would think so.
But getting the signature on the grant deed was going to be a problem. So there's always something new.
Yeah.
But at the core of everything, you all found this particular way of practice. Would you change it?
No, not at all.
It's way too much fun. I mean, you start out, exchanging is different than a buy-sell. In a buy-sell, it's just rote. You've done that before. You go out and you find a buyer and they do this and that. Other thing. On exchanging a difficult property, it is an adventure. You don't know where the pieces are going to go. You don't have any idea whether it's going to be a 2-way, 3-way, 4-way, 5-way transaction. You don't know whether you're going to run into how many aircraft wings or Lockheed's going to be buying in order to tenant to get some credit to make a deal work. there's just some really strange
You guys
stuff.
are playing Legos.
You come to a meeting and you never, things happen that you never anticipate. Just yesterday, Chet and I and a few others got involved in an opportunity that we discovered because we were having coffee and we didn't go to South Lake Tahoe.
The weather was so bad.
Yeah. And so it involved a city that had a problem, and Chet knows development, and somebody else knows syndication, somebody else knows hotels. And so we put together a plan, and we're going to move on it, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
How do you get the feeling a deal just got cemented right there?
No, it got cemented yesterday, and it took us. We all had to trust each other. We all knew what the other strengths and weaknesses were, and what roles we would each play. And we think we've.
The city had a piece of land, and they wanted a convention center and a hotel.
Yeah.
What do you want to be known for? Richard Reno gave you all a tremendous gift. He gave you the passionate side.
Well, I think
behind you.
in my case, I think I'd like to be remembered for somebody that helped somebody.
As simple as that. You teach what you know.
Yeah.
I'll buy that. I like the idea of helping people. Sometimes I get a little evangelistic about it. I'll take somebody aside and spend some time with them, and
you walk around with a portable orange crate. You're on that box in just a minute and a half.
I really like helping people get some new ideas and different ways to do things. So if I find someone that's sitting aside and needs a little help, maybe I'll put somebody, and if I'm moderating or something, maybe I'll put somebody that knows something next to them and let them coach them, or just here's a course you ought to take.
You like to teach.
I do, and I have, and
you like to see the lights come on. I've watched you do it.
Yeah. It feels good to give and share.
That brings up another point. What do you want to leave behind you?
It's a legacy, and it's perpetuate the business, perpetuate the industry.
Fourth generation?
Oh yeah. I've already got a grandson. So,
yeah.
Well,
actually,
I'm third generation actually, and my son Mike is fourth, and there's a fifth coming up. So
fifth one up and coming.
Yeah.
I was doing deals with his father when he was a.
So was I.
Yeah.
Are you the youngster of the team?
Yeah.
Definitely.
From the Richard Reno days, I find myself in the unique position of being one of the youngest ones
to ever take
around.
the course,
yeah,
probably.
Right.
Okay, what would you give as advice to people looking at this career now today, given the circumstances, the market, and what's generally past office training?
Learn from the teachers. Chet, you other people that are teaching, and learn how to do it.
Will you teach?
I'd like to. We're going in that direction right now, and we do roundtables, and we do things like that. But we're moving in a different direction, and those are some of the things we're considering. Yes.
Good. I'm going to take you up on some of that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't mind. And George, I remember having a conversation with you where I challenged you to go back and talk to the retail marketplace again. And you did that.
I did.
How did it feel?
Every day's different, and every day's a new challenge. And the things that I did yesterday that worked out, I do again, and maybe I add a little bit to it. If I can help somebody, I want to, and it's easy because I like doing it.
Well, Chet, Richard Reno's dead. Bless heart. Where would you tell somebody to go, other than to the website, other than...
Well, in the first place, there's a tremendous educational system in the regular real estate arena. I mean, I think the CCIM courses are just wonderful, and everybody should take that and learn the fundamentals and do all that. And then when we get involved in the more creative things that are out there, the Society of Exchange Counselors has the educational arena, and then I know you teach a course, Maggie, and and we're very blessed because an awful lot of members the reason that not all of us are gray, I think, is because of you. You've brought all of the birds along, and we have a lot of young, outstanding young people in the exchange field because of what you and people like you yourself have done.
You know, I fell in love with what I saw from the old farms. I loved the fact that they loved what they were doing, that they were careful to meet their obligations. They were knowledgeable, they were expert, they dealt with each other, they trusted each other, and they had relationships that lasted as long as they did. Mm-hmm. And I was privileged that I was young enough and blonde enough and cute enough. They let me hang around and take notes.
Yeah.
Because no one taught me this. No one taught me the creative side. Yes, I did take the 5-day courses that were horribly expensive, given the time at which they were being given. And they were worth every penny. But in this business, it's been my experience that I learned from you, and then you go and do, and then come back and ask questions of you. It's the shared mentorship, support, and the openness of the environment where everyone is a teacher, everyone is a student, and everyone will share what they know.
Earlier this week, Chet taught a class. Many of the old timers that attended that class, we learned something new. And the society has a number of legends. We've established the legends of the society, and those are the ones that made a difference in the society, and in teaching, Chet's one. Chet's one of the legends, yes.
You are definitely a master. You can take your place in that rank and file. Are the stories of some of your legends available to be read?
I think they're on the website, aren't they?
I think biographies are on there, and some of them probably aren't, but people like Bob Steele, he's still out there doing things. Mm-hmm. And
teaching, yeah.
Unfortunately, Madge has had some medical problems, so she isn't at the meeting, the meeting we had at your place.
We brought Madge in.
Yeah, Madge came in, and Madge has had a stroke, and she's not very ambulatory. But she was one of the people that used to put together she and Bob Steele used to put together 3-way exchanges once a week. They would put them together in Newport Beach. And she was sitting there, and she wrote me a note in the middle of the meeting that said, I may be sick, but I could see at least 3-way exchanges there, three-way exchanges.
I may be sick, but I'm not blind. I can
That's
see.
right,
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, we're in the middle of a maelstrom. Headlines are screeching. This is as worse as it's ever been. This is Armageddon financially. What do you see in the future?
I see more of the same, but I think some of the things that we can do to help those people in real estate that need to move are pretty simple. And that is to lower their expectations for cash transactions. Now, the traditional brokerage, that's what they're after. They don't know, and they don't know, and that's unfortunate. But if clients don't understand that there are alternatives that will work and solve their problems by taking back private financing. Forget the banks, forget the need to refinance, to generate a pile of cash, because cash is available with the paper they take back, the trust deeds they take back. By selling payments, we talked about that. But the brokers who are representing them have to understand that and work in that direction. And not many of them are getting that kind of coaching from their bosses in traditional real estate. If we do anything to help the real estate industry resolve its problems of slow sales, I would say that would be the one thing, at least the most important thing as I see it, to help remedy that. Get off the cash wagon and get real. It's not going to sell for all cash. It's going to sell, but it's going to sell easier if you agree to do some creative financing.
Would both of you agree with that?
Yes.
That's the place to start?
I think that to some extent, when you ask the question, it's the media hasn't helped. and it's perpetuated the downward spiral maybe more than it needed to. And the good news is that the market that we function in has been always there and going on in good times and in bad, and the rest of the people don't understand that. And cash, people do things with cash. That's why they want cash. They really are going to invest it to get income, or to buy a toy, a boat or an airplane. You can do that with real estate, just like you said with the note. If the person was really going to take the cash to go and invest in the market or buy an annuity or something, they got the best annuity in their own property on the note.
Yeah.
They become
why
the bank.
take 2% at the bank?
Yeah.
When you can do 7 or 8% or.
But I don't think the bottom has hit yet. In certain markets, it has, and it's recovering. I think others it hasn't hit bottom yet.
I get emails from the gloom and doomers who say that the whole monetary system is going to tank, and the banks are all going to fail, and the dollar's not going to go anywhere. And then I read in the optimistic side that, well, it's almost over, and by the end of 2010, everything is going to be wonderful again. And I have no idea what way it's going to go. The only thing I do know is that you can only put deals together today, and in anticipation of upside and downside, you put some mitigation language in contracts so that you can soften it if it goes down, or you can benefit from it if it goes up, and you just play it. If you're a golfer, you play it as it lies.
That sounds like such a simple thing when you say it that way. But for people listening, the body of knowledge behind a statement that sounds that simple is incredibly large. Sometimes it's reassuring to know that there are people, in fact, who have mastered this, that it is knowledge that is available. Remember, anything that man can write down can be committed to memory, and what can be committed to memory can be learned and actioned upon. So, hope we gave you some ideas.
Thank you, Maggie.
You're gonna hear from me. Make me some room, you people up there. On top of the world, I'll meet you, I swear. I'm staking my claim, so remember my name. You're gonna hear from me.